Where does money come from? Where does it go? Who makes it? The money magician's secrets are unveiled. We get a close look at their mirrors and smoke machines, their pulleys, cogs, and wheels that create the grand illusion called money. A dry and boring subject. Just wait. You'll be hooked in 5 minutes. Very few Americans know that the Fed is a privately owned bank operating for its own profit. It is actually part of a banking cartel that is controlled by 8 families. Our government has no control over them. Their actions have profound results on the American economy. The citizens lose since the Fed will always do what is in the Fed's best interest. The Federal Reserve is the monster inside every American's medicine cabinet, dark closet, and under every bed. We can't escape it, and yet we work harder each day to pay our taxes and bills, and even when we think we are sort of getting a little ahead, we are drowning due to inflation from a debased currency. Most don't know how to deal with this monster, so we ignore it and hope our ignorance will keep us from being one of the more tragic victims. However, make no mistake, we will all drown and be destroyed by this monster, except for the 1% at the top who will always and forever keep their pile of riches. And the amazing part is that this monster is actually created by that same 1% in order to enslave fellow Americans. If that fact alone does not make you furious and ready to go to war against the crooks in charge, then you are living in a fantasy and delusional denial. 3 families are destroying the US, and they are using the Federal Reserve as their main tool. How? By giving politicians free money which they can use to spend on their projects and to effectively buy votes. So these 3 families leverage the power-hungry types by giving them money as a means to get them power. In return, the power-greedy politicians agree to tax future Americans by force, and give the profits back to these same families. It is an immoral scam, 100% unconstitutional, and yet it is the good old USA you live in right now. Feeling patriotic, anyone? Who are these 3 families who are secretly waging war against every man, woman, and child in the US? The Bank of America, the Citibank, and the Morgan Chase. What we will do to fight against these families who are content to drown the rest of us so that they can not only survive, but live in grandeur and luxury. This is exactly like 1917 Russia. Will we storm the bankers' palaces, strip them of power, and cast them down? Or will we just give up and let them continue to drown us instead? Who among you will rise up and reject the status quo? Who among you will throw off the modern slave chains which now take the form of inflationary tax from devalued currency? If any of you will stand up and say, "Give me liberty or give me death," now is your hour to join the movement to ban the Federal Reserve. And it really is that simple. We don't actually even need to physically fight anyone. All we need to do is use the political channels to end the Fed. If you are up for this, this book will help you gain great insights. I highly suggest you read it. The main event is the establishment of the Federal Reserve in 1913. Since then the dollar has lost 95% of its value. This means today's dollar is worth 5 cents in $1,913, and it takes about $20 today to equal the value of a $1,913. So the main purpose of the Fed has been to devalue the dollar through inflation. This has allowed politicians to spend endlessly to keep themselves in power while pushing the nation towards bankruptcy. Other important events include FDR's confiscation of all privately held gold in 1933. What the government will confiscate in the next economic crisis to save itself we do not yet know. In 1971, Nixon was forced to have the United States default on its promise to exchange an ounce of gold for every $35, thereby taking the country off the gold standard. This allowed the Federal Reserve to print fiat money, meaning it could print as much money as it wanted. This has led to a national debt of $27 trillion and widespread economic and social disorder. The United States is now obviously in decline, and social disorder is spreading after a brief hiatus. Just look at places like Ferguson and Baltimore, where the police were ordered to stand down and let the riots continue. Meanwhile, the rioters were having a great time destroying property, taking selfies, and posing for television cameras. Resisting arrest has been basically decriminalized in the mainstream media. It is apparent that the country is in the same bread and circuses stage as the declining Roman Empire. Today the bread is massive welfare spending and massive inflation of the currency. The main circuses are the biennial national elections, which are the country's main form of entertainment. The elections are basically a ceremony where people pay homage to the myth that they govern. Meanwhile, the real ruling elites such as the Supreme Court and the Federal Reserve make all the important decisions. The politicians that you elect are run by these people whose main aim is to create a new world order, one world government, a dictatorship with no free elections, fighting but a reality, banks creating money by flooding the market with quantitative easing which forces up the cost of living and lowers the interest rate for ordinary people while the rich get richer. Don't be an ostrich, awake. Welcome back to the Atlantis Report. You are here for your daily dose of the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Please take a second to smash that like button. And as you know, friends, Google has demonetized this channel, so now I rely totally on your donations to keep this channel functional. As you know, it takes a crazy amount of research and time to bring you this content on a daily basis, so I hope you consider helping with whatever donation you can afford. Thank you. 1. The bankers, and a few others, control this country, most of its media and its significant politicians, through their control of a cartel deceptively called the Federal Reserve System. 2. The same bankers, and others, control other major economic powers through parallel control of their central banks, media, and politicians. 3. Despite our founding fathers' vehement opposition to any central bank or government-issued paper money, their efforts to ban it constitutionally have been circumvented. 4. Politicians, with few exceptions, cannot resist the appeal of being able to issue fiat not backed by anything of value, therefore being able to be produced in ever-expanding masses until that particular economy eventually collapses, money, because it seems much less painful than levying taxes, and virtually none of their electorate realize that its issuance enables the politicians to spend much more than they could ever raise through taxation while at the same time reducing the value of the citizens' savings, salaries, pensions, etc. 5. Fractional reserves enable banks to loan out close to 10 times the value of their real assets, dramatically increasing the amount of ever-increasing currency in circulation and proportionately cheapening its currency, therefore up to 10 times the country's recently doubled national debt, and to earn interest on each of those multiples loaned. 6. The bankers and their fellow collaborators have learned that nothing inspires a country to engage in the massive issuance of fiat money like war, and they have therefore helped develop and funded enemy powers where none existed, then fostered wars among them, then financed both sides of those wars, then used their control of media to entice the ignorant public into believing in those wars, and reaped huge spoils from those wars, not only in interest on loans, but in lucrative commercial monopolies received for their troubles. 7. Groups of greedy understatement idealists, of which Cecil Rhodes may be considered a prime initiator, began before World War I working toward a single, socialist, communist autocratic world government which would impose the wonders of the elitist British culture on all the world, including the Fabians and, in the US, members of the Council on Foreign Relations, which they, of course, would control. 8. The economic and military strength of the U.S. makes it difficult to subjugate to such a plan, so they need it through its banks to i.a. make massive loans, with no expectation of principal repayment but with government U.S. taxpayers' guarantees to less affluent countries, thereby dramatically economically and militarily weakening the U.S. while distributing its wealth, on which they collect interest, to the less developed nations, with examples like the U.S.'s recent funding of Mexican drilling for oil in the Gulf of Mexico, and Brazil's drilling for oil off its coast, while refusing to allow U.S. drilling in the Gulf for environmental reasons, and blocking 2 pipelines that would have been environmentally far safer and better for the U.S. economy and national security. Of course, this should be required reading in every high school and college, but then, consider the odds that such an idea would even be considered in the U.S. academic institutions of today. This was the Atlantis Report. Please like, share, leave me a comment, subscribe. And please take some time to subscribe to my backup channels, I do upload videos there too. You'll find the links in the description box. You will also find a PayPal link if you want to make a donation. Thank you wholeheartedly to all those of you who have already donated. Stay safe and healthy, friends. The market has priced in massive inflation. Buy real assets with borrowed money on extended terms. And if Biden wins, expect a greater downturn like we haven't seen since the Great Depression, and it will not rise for years as the socialist movement takes root.